wounded. So it's a pretty worrying and desperate time in the Gaza Strip right now. Let's take you to the newsroom. Issam Ekamwami from BBC Arabic is there for us. Issam, I don't know if you've managed to speak to anyone in Gaza since you and I last spoke an hour or so ago, but what are you hearing from there?
There's been an escalation in the Israeli air raids on various positions in Gaza. As you said earlier, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the number of the killed is 198 and over 1,600 people have been injured, taken to various hospitals and clinics for medical attention. So the situation on the ground is pretty grim. The Gazans are gearing themselves to further escalation. Some are not ruling out even land incursions by the Israeli army, as well as the air strikes which have been taking place so far.
Issam, we say these figures, but if we could just take a moment to really reflect on what they mean. If you're one of the 1,610 people wounded in Gaza in the last few hours, how are you able to get help? Is there any medical help available for these people?
The facilities, the infrastructure, the medical infrastructure is very poor in Gaza. It's very limited to how much people can do. This is why you see, for instance, patients leaving the Gaza Strip going to various hospitals for treatment, like cancer and so forth. Even some of them go to Israel for treatment. However, there is some kind of medical facilities, but as I said, it's overstretched when something like this happens. We've seen in previous incidents where there have been violence, raids and so forth, that the medical infrastructure is really laboring under the strain of the high number of casualties that are taken to hospital. Also, earlier to your earlier point, Lucy, the Gaza Strip is pretty small area, so movement would not be that difficult from one place to another, to taking people to medical facilities. Ordinary people use their cars to take people, so all sorts of help will be available, although it's limited.
And also, you mention it's small, the space, with a few million people who are living there as well, Issam, but there's only two ways to get out of Gaza, isn't there? And presumably the border is shut. People can't get to Egypt.
Absolutely, the border is shut. Also, between Israel and the Gaza Strip, the air is crossing, and also with Egypt is shut. So no one is able to leave or get in at the moment. I know that many of my colleagues, journalists, are trying to get in, but even the airport at Tel Aviv is being closed down. So it's very difficult at the moment for people to travel anywhere in Israel or the occupied territories.
We are hearing from one of the Hamas commanders, the deputy chief, Salah al-Aruri, talking about, and we're getting news lines about Israeli captives who Hamas has managed to take Israeli soldiers captive. What is the latest on that? Because he has just said that he has enough Israeli captives to make Israel free all Palestinian prisoners in its jails. And Issam, there are thousands, aren't there, Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails?
Yeah, that's correct. There are over 5,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jail, and for the last few years there have been no prisoner exchange, because in the past we've seen exchange of prisoners. We believe that there are 3 Israelis are being held in the Gaza Strip, but Israel has not been forthcoming in terms of organizing an exchange. There have been several mediation to get prisoners exchanged, but nothing has happened. I read what Saleh al-Aruri has said. He's a senior figure in Hamas. He said that we've got enough Israelis now to force an exchange in the future, but of course that is for later on. It's not going to happen now while the fighting is ongoing. So probably once things calm down a bit, then we'll see what will happen in terms of that.
We know that. Have they made it clear that that was one of their key aims of today, was to take Israeli soldiers captive in order to exchange them?
Well, I mean, it's obvious that it's one of their aims, but there are other aims. I mean, we have to point out, Lucy, that many people on social media are mentioning the 50th anniversary of the 1973 war, which started incidentally on the 6th of October. So they're saying this is another, for younger viewers who don't remember the 1973 war, it's when the Egyptian and Syrian forces stormed at the time the demarcation lines with Israel in order to get back the territories that Israel had occupied in the 1967 war. So many people are linking that with what happened today, saying 50 years on, the resistance is still going on strong against the Israeli occupation.
Sam, I just want to interrupt you, I'm sorry. We will come back to you in a moment, but we have been reporting that 40 Israelis have been killed in the attacks in Israel. Israeli media in the last few minutes or so is now saying at least 100 Israelis have been killed, many hundreds have been injured. And Issam, I was speaking to an MP from the Labour Party a little bit earlier, no fan of Benjamin Netanyahu, obviously, but standing right behind him now. As the horror unfolds and these numbers go up, what is the fear in Gaza, for instance, of how much more severe this retaliatory action could be?
Well, I mean, we were listening to some of the commanders in Gaza and the leadership saying that they're used to Israeli escalation and they're not going to be put off by that. We don't know. It could be just like rhetoric at this stage. But what we know for sure that Israel will lash out and there'll be a really heavy bombardment of the Gaza Strip. We expect much more casualties in the coming hours and days if the fighting continues at this scale. It doesn't look good at this stage. It's pretty grim what is going to happen, Lucy.
Sam, we'll let you go back and keep talking to people in the region, and we'll be back with you shortly. You can see from